The snow was piling up against my truck's windows in the employee lot, the kind of heavy, wet flakes that stick and weigh everything down. I sat there with the engine off, staring at my old flip phone, 18 unread messages and a dozen voicemails blinking like warning lights. Just 3 days ago, Harold Benson had sat across from me in his corner office, avoiding my gaze as he explained why I wasn't the right fit for the lead supervisor role. Now the whole crew at Riverside Manufacturing was blowing up my line like the assembly line had caught fire. My name's Edward Harlan, I'm 62 years old, and up until that meeting, I figured my 25 years at this plant had earned me a quiet glide into retirement. Boy, was I mistaken about a lot in life. I'd started at Riverside back in the late 90s, fresh out of a stint in the Army where I'd managed supply chains for bases across Europe. You learn fast in the military that one loose bolt can bring down a whole operation. Lives depend on getting it right. No room for shortcuts or half measures. That discipline carried me through when I joined Riverside, a mid-sized factory churning out parts for heavy machinery. The place was a mess when I arrived. Outdated equipment, sloppy inventory, workers cutting corners because no one held them accountable. My late wife, Margaret, used to tease me about how I'd come home ranting about inefficiencies, like they were personal enemies. She'd passed from a heart condition 10 years back, leaving me with our daughter Emily, who was just starting college then. I threw myself into the job to cope, figuring hard work would fill the void. For the first few years, I was the fixer. I overhauled the inventory system single-handedly, digitizing what had been stacks of yellowed ledgers. I trained new hires on safety protocols that cut accidents by half. When suppliers ghosted us, I was the one negotiating backups at odd hours. I even designed a shift rotation that boosted productivity without burning folks out, something the union reps still thank me for. Emily would call from school, asking why I missed her recitals or graduations, but I'd say, "Honey, this is how we build security. One day it'll pay off." And for a while, it seemed like it would. Promotions came slow but steady. I made senior technician, then floor coordinator. By 55, I was the unofficial backbone of the plant. Harold Benson took over as plant manager 5 years ago. Sharp guy in his mid-50s, all about vision and synergies. Buzzwords that meant he spent more time in boardrooms than on the floor. He leaned on me hard from day one. "Ed, you're my rock," he'd say, slapping my back before dumping another crisis on my plate. I handled it all, emergency repairs at midnight, smoothing over union disputes, even filling in for absent supervisors during flu seasons. Why? Because I cared about the place and the people. Riverside wasn't just a job, it was my second family after losing Margaret. But Harold? He never dug into the details. As long as the lines ran smooth, he could chase his big-picture dreams. What I didn't see coming was his nephew, Travis. Kid was 28, fresh from some online business degree, slick as oil with zero factory experience. He'd never greased a bearing, never troubleshot a jammed conveyor at 3 a.m., never had to tell a worker their overtime was cut because of budget squeezes. But family ties run deep in these old industrial towns, and Harold had been grooming him quietly. The promotion interview hit like a gut punch on a crisp Monday morning. I'd prepped for weeks. Charts showing how I'd slashed downtime by 40%, testimonials from the floor crew, even projections for streamlining our supply chain further. Harold skimmed my folder for all of 2 minutes before pushing it aside. "Ed, you've been invaluable here," he said, fiddling with his tie. "But we're looking to inject some youthful innovation into the lead supervisor spot. Travis brings that fresh energy we need for the future." Lead supervisor. The role I'd eyed for years, the one that came with a bump to my pension contributions, authority to make real changes, and a title that said my decades mattered. "And my role?" I asked, keeping my voice steady like I'd learned in the Army. "You'll stay on as coordinator. Travis will rely on your expertise to hit the ground running." Translation: I'd do the heavy lifting while the kid collected the paycheck and the credit. My mind flashed to Emily, now 32 with a little girl of her own. I'd skipped visiting them last Christmas to cover holiday shifts. All for this? I see, I said, standing up. Appreciate the clarity. Harold nodded, already checking his watch. Great. Travis starts next week. Mind putting together a training packet by Friday? Your insights would be gold. That was the spark. 25 years of loyalty, and they wanted me to hand-wrap my knowledge for his nephew? I nodded politely and left his office, but instead of heading back to the floor, I clocked out early for the first time in decades. Drove straight home to my quiet ranch house on the edge of town, where Margaret's old flower beds still bloomed wild in the yard. I poured a cup of black coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the faded photo of us on our wedding day. What now, Mags? I whispered. Quitting felt too easy, too bitter. No, I'd do something smarter. I'd follow the rules to the letter. See, my job description was a relic from the 90s. Oversee daily floor operations, maintain equipment logs, coordinate basic shift handoffs. Vague corporate speak that didn't touch the extras I'd layered on. Preventive maintenance schedules, crisis protocols, even mentoring the young mechanics. Starting tomorrow, that's all I'd be. The bare minimum man. That night, I called Emily. Dad? Everything okay? You never call midweek. Her voice was warm, concerned. Just checking in, sweetheart. How's little Sophie? She's a handful, started walking last week. You should come visit soon. I will, I promised, meaning it more than ever. Work's been enlightening lately. We talked for an hour, longer than we had in months. For the first time, I wasn't half listening for a work alarm. Sleep came easier that night, a quiet resolve settling in. Tuesday morning, I punched in at exactly 7 a.m., no early bird prep. No running through the overnight logs or flagging potential bottlenecks for Harold's morning brief. I stuck to my station, logging routine checks and ignoring the chatter from other departments. By 9 a.m., the first ripples hit. Maria from Quality Control poked her head in. Ed, that conveyor in Section 3 is acting up again, vibrating like crazy. You got that fix. I looked up from my paperwork. That's a maintenance ticket for engineering. Filed it per protocol, should route to them by noon. Her brow furrowed. But you always tweak it yourself. Saves hours. Policy says specialized repairs go through channels. Don't want to step on toes. I smiled mildly, but inside, a small fire burned. Maria walked off puzzled, and I watched the clock tick. By lunch, the whispers started. A supplier delay on critical parts, something I'd normally chase down with a phone call, was sitting in procurement's inbox. Ed, can you nudge him? Asked one of the line leads. Forwarded it this morning. They'll handle. Simple as that. The afternoon brought more, a safety drill mix-up because no one had the updated roster I'd usually distribute. Workers milled about confused, productivity dipping. I finished my shift at 3:30 p.m. sharp, no overtime. Driving home through the falling snow, I felt a weight lift. Emily texted. Sophie's asking for Grandpa. Video call tonight? For once, I could say yes without guilt. Wednesday amplified the chaos. I arrived on time, focused solely on my assigned logs. Harold's email popped up. Ed, where's the daily summary? Meeting with execs in 30. I replied, per job desk, summaries are supervisor level. Happy to provide raw data if needed. The plant hummed with tension. That conveyor issue from yesterday? Still unresolved because engineering was backed up. Parts delay escalated. Now a line was idle. Phone calls came in waves. Ed, why isn't this moving? Ed, clients on the horn about specs. Each time, routed to the proper department, check the manual. Section 4 covers escalations. No one had cracked that binder in years, dust gathering on my meticulous notes. By mid-afternoon, Travis stopped by, looking eager but out of his depth. Uncle Harold said you'd show me the ropes? I nodded. Sure, kid. Here's the basic coordinator handbook. Start there. No extras. No war stories. He left with a stack of papers, confusion in his eyes. Quitting time, I was out the door. Home by 4 p.m., I shoveled the driveway, then video called Emily. Sophie's chubby face filled the screen, babbling, "Papa." My heart swelled. Moments like this, stolen by years of overwork. "Dad, you look rested," Emily noted. "Feeling it too," I said. But inside, I knew the storm was building at Riverside. And I was just getting started. Thursday morning dawned colder than the day before, the snow now a thick blanket over the parking lot at Riverside. I pulled in at 6:55 a.m., gave myself a moment in the truck with the heater blasting, then walked in exactly on time. No early coffee run, no quick check of the overnight reports. The plant was already buzzing with an uneasy energy, like a machine running just a hair off balance. I settled at my station, pulled out the daily log sheet, and started the routine checks. Nothing more. No proactive walkthroughs, no heads up to the morning shift about the conveyor that had been rumbling since Tuesday. The manual I'd written years ago, thick, laminated, full of step-by-step fixes, sat untouched on the shelf behind me. Around 8:15, the first real wave hit. The line in Section 3 ground to a halt. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. Workers scattered, shouting over the noise. One of the younger mechanics, Tommy, jogged over, wiping grease from his hands. "Ed." Conveyors seized again. Bearings probably shot. "You got the spare part number handy? You always know where they're stashed." I looked up calmly. Check the maintenance inventory log, Section 5, page 42. Cross-reference with the supplier code. Engineering has the requisition process now. I went back to my log entry. Tommy blinked. "But, you usually just grab it from the backroom and swap it in 10 minutes. "Used to." That was outside the coordinator scope. Engineering handles repairs and parts now. I kept my tone even, almost friendly. He stared for a second, then hurried off, muttering. By 10 a.m., the idle line had backed up the whole floor. Production quotas slipped. Phones rang off the hook, supervisors calling each other. Then finally Harold's office. I could see him through the glass window, pacing, phone to his ear, gesturing wildly. Travis hovered nearby, clipboard in hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Lunchtime brought Maria again, this time with a clipboard of her own. "Ed, we've got 3 quality holds piling up because the delay threw off our sampling schedule. You always rerouted the line to keep us moving." I nodded. "That's a quality control adjustment. Protocol says it routes through your department lead for approval. I forwarded the alert yesterday. Should be in your inbox." She rubbed her temple. "Nobody read it. We're buried back there." "Understandable," I said. "The procedures are all in the binder. Section 8 covers contingency sampling during delays." Maria sighed, walked away shaking her head. The cracks were spreading. Afternoon brought the big one. A major order for Midwest Machinery, our biggest client, was due for shipping by end of day. The parts delay from Tuesday had snowballed. Now half the batch was short because procurement hadn't chased the supplier. Normally, I'd have called in favors, rerouted stock from the warehouse, maybe even driven to the supplier myself like I did back in '09 during the big freeze. Instead, I watched from my desk as the shipping coordinator argued with the warehouse lead. Voices rose. Harold stormed onto the floor, tie loosened, face flushed. He spotted me and marched over. "Ed, we've got a problem with the Midwest order. They're threatening penalties if we miss the window. What's the holdup?" I met his eyes steadily. Procurement flagged a supplier delay Monday. It was escalated per protocol. They're working on it. Harold's jaw tightened. "You know how this works. You always smooth these things out. Call your guy at the supplier. Get it moving. My job description doesn't include external vendor negotiations. That's procurement's lane now. I paused, then added gently, everything's documented. The escalation chain is clear. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Ed, this is the company. We're all in this together. I agree. That's why I'm sticking to my assigned responsibilities, so everyone can do their part properly. For a moment, the floor noise seemed to fade. Harold looked around at the stalled machines, the frustrated workers, the blinking alarms. Then he turned and stalked back to his office without another word. Travis approached a few minutes later, hesitant. Mr. Harlan, Uncle Harold said you might walk me through the shipping process? For the Midwest thing. I pulled the relevant binder from the shelf. Here's the full shipping protocol. Section 12 covers client-specific deadlines. The checklist starts on page 78. Walk through it step by step. It's all there. He took the binder, pages heavy in his hands. This is a lot. It is, I said. But that's operations. Takes time to learn. You'll get it. He nodded slowly and wandered off, flipping pages. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I clocked out at 3:30 sharp. The drive home felt different. Quieter. Lighter. Snowflakes swirled in the headlights. At home, I shoveled the driveway slowly, methodically, the scrape of metal on concrete a satisfying rhythm. My back ached a bit, but it was a good ache, the kind that came from real work, not endless overtime. Inside, I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at Margaret's photo. The house was quiet, but not empty. Emily had texted earlier. Sophie's got a little cold, but she's asking for grandpa stories. Call when you're free. For the first time in years, I was free. We video called that evening. Sophie's face lit up when she saw me, waving chubby hands. Papa. Snowman. I laughed. We'll build one this weekend, sweetheart. Promise. Emily watched me closely. Dad. You sound different. Happier. What's going on at work? I took a sip of coffee. I'm finally doing exactly what they pay me for. Turns out that's enough. She smiled, but there was a question in her eyes. And they're okay with that? They're adjusting. I didn't tell her about the chaos, the alarms, Harold's red face. Not yet. After we hung up, I sat in the dim kitchen light, watching the snow fall. The plant would be in full meltdown by now. Overtime calls going out, tempers flaring. They'd scramble, patch things together. Maybe even get the Midwest order out late. But the system, the one I'd held together with duct tape and late nights, was finally showing its true shape. Friday morning would be the real test. The big client deadline. The executive review. And me. I'd walk in at 7 o'clock, do my logs, and let the chips fall. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud or angry. It's quiet. It's precise. It's simply stepping back and letting people see exactly what they've been taking for granted all these years. And tomorrow, they'd see it clearer than ever. Friday morning arrived like the eye of a storm, deceptively calm. The snow had stopped overnight, leaving the world sharp and white under a pale January sun. I pulled into the lot at 6:58 a.m., engine ticking as it cooled. My thermos of black coffee steamed in the cold air as I walked past the loading docks. Already, I could hear the difference. The usual steady hum of the plant was ragged, uneven, like a heartbeat skipping. Inside, the floor was a controlled panic. Red tags hung from half the machines in Section 3. The Midwest machinery shipment, our biggest quarterly order, was still sitting incomplete on the dock, crates half-packed, paperwork scattered. Overnight crews had tried to patch things together, but without the full picture, they'd only made half measures worse. I could smell the tension. Burnt coffee, overheated motors, frayed nerves. I clocked in at exactly 7 o'clock, hung up my coat, and started my routine log checks. No glances at the chaos. No offers of help. Just the clipboard, the pen, the quiet scratch of ink on paper. At 7:45, Harold burst onto the floor, coat still on, hair uncombed. He spotted me immediately and strode over, voice low but tight. "Ed, we need to talk. Now." I set the pen down carefully. "Sure, Harold. My station's clear." We walked to the small break room off the main floor, empty except for the hum of the vending machine. He shut the door. "Midwest called at 6 a.m., he said. "They're furious. Half the orders missing critical components, and the ones we did ship don't match the updated spec sheet. They're talking about pulling the rest of the contract. $2.8 million in annual business, Ed. You know what that means." I nodded slowly. "I do. It's the biggest client we've got." Harold leaned in. "You could fix this. You've always fixed it. One call to your contact at the supplier, reroute the missing parts from the backup warehouse, adjust the spec in the system like you did last year. You know the workaround." "I know it," I agreed. "But the workaround isn't in the coordinator job description. Vendor coordination, spec overrides, emergency reroutes, those are procurement and engineering lanes now. I escalated the original delay Monday. It's in the system." His face darkened. "Ed, this isn't the time for rules. This is the company. People's jobs are on the line." "I understand that," I said quietly. "That's why I documented everything. Every escalation. Every warning. The procedures are there. They've been there for years." Harold stared at me, breathing hard. "You're really doing this? After 25 years?" "I'm doing exactly what I was hired to do," I replied. "Nothing more, nothing less." He ran a hand through his hair. "Fine. Then you're coming to the emergency meeting at 9. Corporate's on the line. They want answers." "I'll be there," I said. "My calendar's clear." He left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. The meeting room was packed when I walked in at 8:55. Harold at the head of the table, Travis beside him clutching a binder like a lifeline. 3 faces on the big screen, corporate suits from headquarters in Chicago. The regional director, Ellen Carter, sat at the far end, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I took the empty chair near the door. No one spoke for a long moment. Ellen broke the silence. "Midwest is threatening to walk." "Explain." Harold cleared his throat. "We had a supplier delay earlier in the week. It snowballed. We're working on contingencies." "Contingencies?" Ellen cut in. "This is a multi-million-dollar account. We don't do contingencies. We deliver." Travis shifted. We're trying to locate the missing parts. But the system won't let us override the spec without supervisor approval, and..." Ellen's eyes narrowed. "Who normally handles overrides?" All eyes turned to me. I spoke calmly. "Historically, I've expedited certain processes under verbal authorization from management. But with the recent restructuring emphasis on defined roles, I've been advised to adhere strictly to the documented procedures." Harold's jaw clenched. "Ed, this is not the time." Ellen held up a hand. "Mr. Harlan, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the one who built most of our operational systems. You wrote the manuals, trained the teams, managed the crises for decades." "That's accurate," I said. "And now you're refusing to step in?" "I'm not refusing," I corrected gently. "I'm following protocol. The procedures exist. They're comprehensive. If followed, they prevent exactly this kind of cascade failure." The room went quiet. Ellen studied me. "You're making a point." "I'm making an observation," I said. "For 25 years, I've operated beyond my job description to keep things running. That created dependency. When I step back, the system shows its weaknesses. That's not punishment. That's clarity. Harold spoke up, voice strained. We can discuss philosophy later. Right now, we need the order shipped. I looked around the table. Travis pale, corporate executives frowning, Ellen thoughtful. I'll help, I said. But only if we clarify something first. Ellen leaned forward. Name it. My role. If I'm to continue providing the institutional knowledge that keeps this plant alive, it needs to be recognized properly. Title, compensation, authority. Otherwise, I'll continue as coordinator, and we'll keep having days like today. Harold exploded. You're holding the company hostage? No, I said evenly. I'm asking for alignment between responsibility and recognition. I've earned that conversation. Ellen's eyes flicked to Harold, then back to me. Mr. Harlan, step outside for a moment. I nodded and left the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, heart steady. The snow outside the window glittered. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of the entire plant on my shoulders. 10 minutes later, Ellen opened the door. Ed, come back in. Harold was gone. Travis sat alone, looking smaller. Ellen spoke first. We've made mistakes. Serious ones. We've allowed personal relationships to cloud judgment and created a single point of failure. You. That ends today. She slid a folder across the table. We're offering you the position of Operations Director. Full oversight of the plant floor, direct report to me, 40% salary increase, authority to hire 2 additional senior coordinators, and budget for a cross-training program. Travis will start as a junior supervisor under your direct mentorship. Harold will move to a corporate advisory role, strategic planning, no line authority. I opened the folder. The numbers were solid. Better than I'd expected. And if I decline? I asked. Ellen smiled faintly. Then we start over. But we both know that takes time we don't have. Midwest is waiting. I looked at Travis. He met my eyes, nervous, but not defiant. Travis, I said, you want to learn this job? Really learn it? He swallowed. Yes, sir. I didn't understand how much went into it. I want to earn it. I turned back to Ellen. I'll take the offer. But with conditions. Name them. Full authority on hiring and training. No more shortcuts. And Travis gets a fair shot, but only on merit. Done. I signed the acceptance form. Then I stood. I'll handle Midwest. Travis, you're with me. Bring the binder. We start now. Back on the floor, the alarms were still blinking, but the energy had shifted. Workers watched as I walked to the dock, Travis trailing behind. I picked up the phone, dialed my old contact at the supplier. Hey, Mike. It's Ed. Yeah, I know it's been a while. Listen, we're in a bind. By 11:30, the missing parts were rerouted. By 1 o'clock, the spec override was processed, properly documented this time. By 3 o'clock, the trucks were loaded, the order complete. Midwest got their apology call from me personally, and I promised no repeat. As the last truck pulled out, Travis stood beside me on the dock, snow dusting his shoulders. That was intense, he said. That's operations, I replied. Welcome to it. He nodded slowly. Thanks for not letting me sink. You won't sink if you learn, I said. And I'll teach you. But you'll earn every step. He smiled, small but real. I clocked out at 3:30. Drove home through the quiet streets. That night, I called Emily. Dad? You sound lighter. I got the promotion, I told her. Director. And a real chance to fix things right. She laughed. Delighted. About time they saw what I've always known. I looked at Margaret's photo on the mantel. Yeah, about time. But the real victory wasn't the title or the money. It was knowing that tomorrow I'd walk back in, not as the invisible fixer, but as the man who'd finally made them see. And I'd be home in time for dinner. The weeks that followed felt like the slow thaw after a long winter. Snow melted into slush, then into patches of green grass pushing through the cracks in the sidewalks around Riverside. I started arriving at the plant a little earlier, not 6 a.m. like the old days, but 7:30, enough time for coffee and a quick walk of the floor before the morning shift change. No more midnight emails. No more carrying the whole operation on my back. The title change came with a new office, small, but mine, with a window overlooking the loading docks. The plaque on the door read, Edward Harlan, Operations Director. Every time I passed it, I thought of Margaret. She'd have laughed, said something like, "Took them long enough to catch up to you, Ed." I'd smile and agree. First order of business. The cross-training program. I pulled together a team of the best floor leads, people who'd been quietly doing their jobs well for years without fanfare. We built a rotating schedule so no single person became the only one who knew how to fix a particular machine, chase a vendor, or handle a client escalation. Within a month, Tommy could troubleshoot the conveyor bearings on his own. Maria's quality team had backup support from the warehouse crew. Knowledge spread like roots under soil. Slow, steady, unbreakable. Travis surprised everyone, maybe even himself. He showed up early, asked questions, took notes. He made mistakes. Plenty of them, but he owned them. When a minor parts mix-up happened in week 3, he didn't run to me or Harold. He followed the protocol we documented together, fixed it in under 2 hours, and wrote up a short report on what he'd learned. I read it at my desk, nodded, and left a sticky note. Good work. Next time, loop in procurement sooner. Keep going. He did. Harold moved to the advisory role in Chicago, called once a week at first. Awkward small talk, then business updates. Over time, the calls got shorter, easier. He stopped trying to micromanage from afar. Eventually, he even congratulated me on the new efficiency numbers. Downtime down 28%, client satisfaction up, no major incidents in 3 months. I thanked him, meant it, and hung up. No grudges. Just closure. Ellen flew in from headquarters once a quarter. Each visit, she walked the floor with me, spoke to the crews, listened to their ideas. You've built something sustainable here, Ed, she said during her second trip. We were blind to it before. Not anymore. I shrugged. It was always there. Just took stepping back to let everyone see it. The real change, though, happened at home. I started driving to Emily's every other weekend. Sophie would run to the door, arms wide, yelling, "Papa!" I'd scoop her up, smell the baby shampoo in her hair, and feel something settle deep in my chest. We built snowmen when there was snow, then leaf piles, then sprinkler runs in the spring. I taught Sophie how to hold a wrench, how to listen to an engine, how to be patient when things don't go right the first time. Emily watched it all with quiet wonder. One Sunday evening, as we sat on her porch watching Sophie chase fireflies, she turned to me. "Dad, I don't think I've ever seen you this present. Not even when I was little." I looked out at the yard, the fading light. I missed a lot back then. Thought I was building security. Turns out, I was building walls instead. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're here now. That's what matters." I nodded. Yeah, that's what matters. 6 months in, the plant ran smoother than it ever had. The union rep stopped by my office just to say thanks. No more surprise overtime, no more single-point failures. Productivity climbed, not because people worked harder, but because they worked smarter, together. One Friday evening, I left at 4:30. No rush, no guilt. I stopped at the grocery store, picked up steaks, potatoes, and Sophie's favorite ice cream. Drove the extra 30 minutes to Emily's without checking my phone once. When I walked in, Sophie tackled my legs. Emily hugged me tight. "Dinner's on me tonight," I said, setting bags on the counter. As we cooked together, steaks on the grill, potatoes in the oven, Sophie helping by stirring a bowl of nothing. I realized this was the life I'd been chasing without knowing it. Not the title, not the office, not the numbers on a spreadsheet. This. Later, after Sophie was asleep and Emily had gone to bed, I sat on the porch with a cup of decaf, watching the stars. My phone buzzed once, a text from Travis. "Handled the overnight parts delivery myself. No issues. Thanks for the tips." I smiled, typed back. "Proud of you. Keep it up." Then I turned the phone face down and let the quiet settle. 25 years of carrying the load had taught me something simple, something I wished I'd learned sooner. Your worth isn't measured by how much you do for people who won't see it. It's measured by the moments you choose to protect. Family, peace, your own heart. Sometimes the strongest move isn't fighting louder. It's stepping back, letting the system show its cracks, and then rebuilding it stronger, fairer, with everyone in their right place. I looked up at the sky, thought of Margaret and whispered, "We got there, Mags. Took the long way, but we got there." Then I went inside, locked the door, and went to bed early. Because tomorrow was Saturday, and Sophie wanted to build another snowman, if the weather held. And I wouldn't miss it for the world.